This brings me back to what you were saying earlier about your conversation with Randy Barnett and the highest good of man. Because you mentioned Barnett's a Thomist Aristotelian. This prompted me to recall a letter that my friend Richard Samuelson showed me from John Adams. Adams says, in the ancient world, there were all these philosophies to choose from, and at least most of them had a lot of dignity and nobility to them. You could be a Stoic, you could be a Peripatetic, you could follow a number of wise teachers among the Greeks and Romans. But our philosophers are all the low, groveling disciples of Epicurus. In other words, all modernity is effectively Epicurean. And it is Epicureanism that describes the world as atoms shooting through a void, creating a multiverse in which the highest good of man is pleasure, or at least the absence of pain, ataraxia, kind of serenity. I think of Epicurus of wellness culture. I think of like if what we're really trying to be is like safe and well and at peace, then we're basically Epicureans.
And that's why so many
And
people, like your father during his journey, love that way station
totally, yes,
because
exactly.
it feels right. Well,
Serenity. Yeah, Buddhism, for my dad at least, and I think for a lot of Western practitioners, is exactly the release from consequence, the terrible existential weight of being accountable to absolutes. Instead, better to treat the whole self as an illusion and make your life about eliminating that anxiety, that fear. This is not the Western way. Aristotle tells you the good of natural man. We're going to love what's good. We're going to hate what's evil. We're going to cultivate the virtues in that. And those habits will eventually build up and build up to the iceberg tip of being a rational animal. That is, we'll have this connection to sort of infinite principles in our reasoning mind. And then Thomas says, yes, and that will then lead you up what you call the chain of being to thinking of the highest cause. And in fact, it turns out you have a destiny there too, beyond the death of your natural body. This is an incredibly beautiful and ennobling way to live. It's also an extraordinarily high stakes way to live, because if we are in fact accountable to moral absolutes and not simply emanations of a universe whose reality is independent of us and in which we, or the idea of the self, is kind of an illusion. But no, actually, you are Ron and I am Spencer, and that's on purpose. And we, each of us, kind of have responsibility to this higher power. All sorts of things might happen. You might have to change the way you personally live. You might have to go to war with other people who feel differently. You might have trouble living together with the others around you who might dispute or disagree. And this is why I sort of am working this way up to answering your question about pluralism, right? There kind of emerged a quiet agreement that we were going to shelve a lot of these questions, and we were at least just going to leave them outside the public sphere so that we could have basically Voltaire's vision of the London Stock Exchange, where he says the Mohammedan and the Jew and the Christian, they go to the stocks, and only a bankrupt is an infidel. Everybody else gets to hang out together. As an American, I find this very appealing, actually. Like, this is a picture of the world as a big clubbable cocktail party that I really want to join. Well, we're going to be Epicureans. I mean, this is, I think the answer, the thinking was we're going to pursue serenity, pleasure, well-being. On our off hours, in our private time, we're going to have a sort of hermetically sealed religion of our choosing. Friedrich Nietzsche is like, you guys are going to spend this cultural capital down, and then it's not going to be the bright dawn of orderly serenity and virtue that you'd think. Because if the religions caused you to fight over the virtues or the highest questions, they also caused you to believe in them. And if you stop believing in them, you're going to have to reinvent an entirely new way of living that actually will be based on the will and the assertion of the will. And as you indicated, that is kind of what happened. The world did not become more peaceful. The world did not become more enjoyable. The pleasure that we were promised to get out of this has started to fade.
and the reduction of anxiety,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like,
how'd that go?
doesn't